In this chapter, besides discussing the other things, first of all, we are going to discuss about the optimal inflation rate. The optimal inflation rate is decided by considering the cost of inflation and the benefits of inflation. So first of all, we focus on the cost of inflation. The first cost to be considered is the shoe leather cost, which means that while there is high inflation in the economy, it is more number of times you need to go to a bank for withdrawing your money, which wears out your shoes. In general sense, it means that there is high opportunity cost of visiting the bank or maybe any other source from which you have to withdraw your money. The second cost of inflation is tax distortions, which we are going to explain with the help of two examples. Supposingly, the first example says that supposing an individual has bought a house of which the purchase price is equal to 50,000 and he tends to sell it after 10 years at the rate of 50,000 plus the rate of inflation. Now here, while he sells his property, he is entitled to some kind of a capital gain tax which he has to pay. However, he should ideally not be paying it because the real value of the property has not really risen. It is only because of the inflation that he has to pay a higher level of tax. So this is considered to be a cost of inflation. The second example, which is a similar one, supposing you have bought a financial instrument on which you are getting some rate of interest, and all of a sudden the nominal rate of interest increases. Now, when the tax calculations go, it is on the nominal interest rate and not the real rate of interest. So, you tend to pay a higher level of tax. However, to focus on the analysis of this particular cost of inflation, actually, it is not because of inflation that this kind of a distortion is happening. It is because of a badly designed tax policy which is not able to accommodate such changes happening due to only nominal value change. It is not able to incorporate. The third cost of inflation is money illusion. Supposing I start getting a higher wage rate, maybe it is because of higher inflation, but I do not really realize it. So I tend to spend more or maybe feel a little richer that my income has risen, but in actuality, it might just have fallen if I calculate the real wage rate. The fourth cost of inflation is the inflation variability. I have in the class also many a times explained that whenever there are cases or spots of inflation, it is the fixed income group which is always at loss. So whosoever has invested in financial instruments earning fixed rate of interest would be at loss. Similarly, the people who are retired, whatever pensions they are getting, they are not going to get any added level of inflation benefit on it. So they would be at loss because of rising inflation. Now we come to the benefits of inflation. The first benefit is seigniorage, which is the revenue earned from money creation. So higher is the level of inflation. In order to match the expenditure of the community, of the economy, of the society, the monetary authority has to supply a higher money supply. Similarly, when the government has to spend more because of increasing inflation, they'll have to print and supply more money into the economy. So whatever revenue they earn out of that money creation is basically seigniorage. The best of the example to be given is in terms of the US dollars, because US dollar is something which is worldwide demanded. So whenever there is a rise in the demand for dollars, it is high seigniorage that the Federal Reserve or maybe the US economy which is going to earn. Benefit of inflation is the option of negative real interest rate, which we are going to explain with the help of taking example. Supposing there are two economies, economy A and economy B. Economy A is a positive inflation economy, while economy B is a zero inflation economy. The real rate of interest in both economies is the same, and the nominal rate of interest in economy is 6%, while in economy B is equal to 2%. Now, supposingly both the economies are hit by recession and they have to recover. Now, the likelihood of the recovery is better in economy A because it has an opportunity of reducing the nominal rate of interest by 6%, while economy B can only reduce it by 2%. So the investor investment is going to be higher in economy A as compared to economy B. Third benefit of inflation is money illusion again. Here again we take an example of economy A and economy B, where economy A is a positive inflation economy and the economy B is a zero inflation economy. Now, supposingly the recession example continues and the employers they are trying to reduce the total wages being given to the people. In economy A, they have an opportunity of increasing the nominal wage rate. The result would be a negative real wage rate equal to minus 3%. On the contrary, economy B also has real wage rate equal to minus 3%, but it does so by reducing the nominal wage rate by 3%. Now, nobody is going to accept this kind of a thing that there's a reduction in the nominal wage rate because there's a downward stickiness of the wage rate. Hence, there is a higher possibility of nation A recovering from the inflation Why? Because the real wage rates cut would be acceptable in this economy. Having discussed the cost of inflation and the benefits of inflation, empirically, if we see that the optimal inflation rate in most of the economy is around 2 to 3%. Next is the section on money growth targets and the target ranges. How do you calculate that how much extra money has to be produced or supplied in the economy? It is done with the help of the estimated rate of growth of our output. ROG stands for the rate of growth and the inflation. So supposingly the inflation rate, the expected inflation rate is equal to 4%, or maybe the past year's inflation rate has been equal to 4%, and that is what exactly would we are expecting it to be in the future. And the rate of growth of output is equal to 3%. Then the target rate of growth of money supply would be equal to 4 plus 3, which is equal to 7%. This is the long run or the medium rate target. However, in the short run, deviations are allowed. For example, during recessions, there have to be compensatory packages where the money supply can raise. Relationship between money growth rate and the inflation. Higher is the rate of growth of money supply, higher would be the inflation. We have been studying of a very tight relationship. That means the relationship is proportional. The price increase would be equal to the increase in the money supply. This is based on the premise that the supply of money, the real supply of money, shown in the equation with the left hand side M by P, is equal to the demand for money. Y stands for the transactional demand for money, which is dependent on income, and LI, that means speculative demand for money, which is dependent on the interest rate. So now, supposingly the demand for money halves due to, say, financial deepening, you don't require much of cash to be kept with yourself because you have the service of the plastic money or maybe the ATMs where easily you can withdraw the money. Then it implies for the equality of left hand side and right hand side that the price must double. Therefore, we see that without any change in the nominal money supply, where the numerator has not changed, but it is the demand for money which has changed, the prices are still changing. Next in line is inflation targeting, which is the most important section of this chapter. The monetary authority of every economy has some or the other target in its mind. It can be money supply target, it can be the credit growth target, it can be the output target, it can be the exchange rate target, etc. etc. So inflation targeting is one of it. As the name is very very clear that the monetary authority tries to target that the inflation rate has to be between a range, say 2 to 4% or 4 to 6%. So it can have a number of the inflation expectation. The concept of inflation targeting can be explained with the help of the Phillips curve equation, which you see here. Pi stands for the rate of inflation. Pi star is the target level of inflation. UT and UN are the present level of unemployment and the natural level of unemployment. So, supposingly the present inflation is equal to the target rate of inflation, then automatically the present unemployment is equal to the natural rate of unemployment. Now, in recession, inflation tends to reduce because the aggregate demand is reducing. So, if the inflation is less than the target level of inflation, then the present unemployment will be greater than the natural level of unemployment. For this, we require monetary expansion to boost in the economy because when the money supply will increase, the interest rate will fall, and this will help the investment in the economy to boost up. However, inflation targeting is not always perfect. Supposingly the present unemployment is equal to the natural rate of unemployment, but then also many a times you realize that the inflation is increasing. So the monetary policy is not really sure to continue with the inflation targeting or not. This is the scenario presently in India also. It is not really sure that inflation targeting should continue because many other economies who had chosen inflation targeting are also moving away from it because you're realizing a high level of output fluctuation. Next to the interest rate rule, help explained with the help of the Taylor rule. Most of the economies following inflation targeting rely on the Taylor rule. What does it explain? It explains the deviation of the interest rate or any change in interest rate due to inflation gap and unemployment gap. Let me explain you the equation. On the left hand side, you see the nominal rate of interest, which is the present one, and then you see the natural rate of interest or the real rate of interest given by I star. Then you have the inflation gap, which is the difference between the present inflation rate and the target level of inflation. And the last one is the difference between the present unemployment level and the natural level of unemployment. So whenever you have either an inflation gap or the unemployment gap, you will see that the nominal rate of interest being changing by the monetary authority. For example, in our country, it is a repo rate which changes whenever there is some kind of deviation between the inflation or the unemployment or the output. Where now, as we know, there is always a tip between the objective of inflation control and the output growth. So if you want to achieve inflation, you cannot achieve output growth. However, if you want to achieve output growth implied by a fall in the unemployment, you cannot simultaneously achieve inflation, because every increase in the money supply is inflationary, plus it produces some growth for the economy, which at the same time would reduce unemployment. So supposingly the present rate of inflation is greater than the target rate of inflation, and the monetary authority is not really comfortable about it. So what does it need to do? It needs to increase the rate of interest so that there is lesser demand in the economy, and automatically the demand will suppress and the inflation will come down. On the contrary, if it is the unemployment which is high, it needs to boost growth in the economy by reducing the rate of interest. So you see, with the inflation gap, the nominal rate of interest has a positive relationship, and with the unemployment gap, it has a negative relationship. Now, important part of the Taylor rule are the coefficient values of A and B. A is the coefficient value of the responsiveness of inflation gap, the change in the interest rate to inflation gap, and B is the responsiveness of interest rate to the unemployment gap. So supposingly the monetary authority is worrisome about the level of the inflation in the economy and it tries to follow inflation targeting. Then the value of A must be high, and according to Taylor rule, it should be greater than 1. It means that the change in the nominal rate of interest should be greater than the rate of inflation to make the real rate of interest rise. Because unless and until the real rate of interest is not going to increase, people are not going to suppress the aggregate demand. The monetary authority is more worried about the level of the rising unemployment in the economy, then it needs to keep the B value high. That means the reduction in the interest rate should be greater than the unemployment gap in order to ensure that the real rate of interest actually falls in the economy and there is some increase in the aggregate demand which would boost investment. Discuss all the components of Taylor rule, one point should be noted that the Taylor rule should not be strictly followed. You should allow shorter deviations of the inflation and the output level. It is only when you see that the inflation is on a permanent basis increasing, or maybe it is rising in the medium run, that the interest rate must change accordingly. Secondly, there are various other types of economic changes in the economy. For example, the exchange rate crisis, the present example of the recessionary conditions in the economy, due to which the nominal rate of interest is changing. So it's not necessarily due to unemployment or maybe the inflation that the Taylor rule would be followed. Last section of this chapter, which is the monetary policy instruments, there are three types of instruments of monetary policy. One are the required reserves. Uh, Generally, you have to say, you can say it is the CRR and the SLR shown in the previous slide with the help of theta. Then, so supposingly the CRR or the SLR are raised, then the money supply in the economy will come down. So it's an instrument of control in the hands of the monetary authority. Second is the lending to the bank, which is done through discount windows. So an increase in the discount rate by the RBI would make the borrowings by the commercial banks expensive, and ultimately for the commercial borrowers it is going to be expensive. Last is the open market operations, wherein we increase edge or reduce edge by open market sales and open market purchases. This we come to the end of the chapter number 25. Thank you so much.